Exclusive. Pope wants to scrap centuries-old ban on priests marrying and told divorced woman living in sin that she could receive Holy Communion, claims confidant. Daily Mail, March 12, 2015. In a separate video, we have considered the issue of celibacy. We want to move on to this one, which is a little more contentious. They're interviewing an Oscar Crespo, who's a good friend of George Bergoglio, Anarcho Francis. Speaking to Mail Online, he said these were his priorities as Pope. The first of all is to change the rules for divorced couples. And then we read, in October, the Pope convened an extraordinary Synod of Bishops, where he invited the 150 Holy Fathers to focus on the family, including the eligibility of divorced and remarried Catholics to receive communion. He has been even more outspoken about married divorcees, claiming that excluding them from church life is akin to excommunication. They quote him, "Come on, if I disclose any of this, it will seem that they have been excommunicated in fact. Thus let us open the doors a bit more. Why can't they be godfathers and godmothers?" The fact that the word excommunication comes up is quite appropriate. We're going to quote from the Third Council of Baltimore, number 124 of its Acta. We establish the penalty of excommunication reserved to the ordinary to be incurred ipso facto by those who, after obtaining a civil divorce, dare to attempt marriage. Ipso facto means by the very fact. And so, the couple gets married, they get divorced. If one of them decides to get married to someone else and goes through with a civil marriage, Can 19 says these type of things must be interpreted strictly, then they are excommunicated. Church law is quite clear. Excommunication is only inflicted for mortal sins, and not for all mortal sins. We don't excommunicate you for adultery, for instance, or for getting drunk. But this sin is considered such a danger to the faith that they issued excommunication. Possibly because at that time amongst the non-Catholics in the United States, because this is only in effect in the United States, unless it's been issued elsewhere, non-Catholics were starting to ease up on divorce and remarriage. Now this was issued in 1884. Now we know like 50 years later, divorce was still looked down upon by people in general. It was permitted. You had to have a reason, etc. But now, I mean, you go down there, you file a piece of paperwork, and you're done. More complicated case, you have to go to court because you got to settle issues of child support, division of property, etc. But it's a done deal no matter what. And so we're looking at the Synod on the family. The next Synod on the family is around our birthday in September in Philadelphia. Looking at the schedule, the Synod runs here, then George Bergoglio arrives at the end of the Synod, and then he does several days worth of stuff. He's actually even addressing a joint session of Congress, which is unusual. We haven't figured that one out. But let's return to the Synod on the family. Okay. The reason we know about this thing from the Third Council of Baltimore is October 22, 1977, as quoted in Canon Law Digest, Volume 8. Petition. The bishops of the United States of North America, in the plenary session held on the 4th day of the month of May, 1977, requested from the Apostolic See that the penalty of excommunication legislated by the Plenary Council of Baltimore in 1884, reserved to the ordinary, which was to be automatically incurred by those who, after having obtained a civil divorce, dare to attempt another marriage, be repealed. Reply. From the audience with the Supreme Pontiff, that would be Paul VI, on 22 October 1977, the Supreme Pontiff, Pope Paul VI, after having listened to the report of the undersigned Cardinal, Prefect of the Sacred Congregation for Bishops, graciously granted the favor as requested. The slippery slope was started back in 1977. Okay. And the next step in the conciliar church is to join with its Protestant brethren, who for the most part accept divorce and remarriage as if it were nothing. Oh, they might say a few words against it. This is not the ideal. But when it comes down to brass tacks, it's totally acceptable. It will soon be totally acceptable in the conciliar church. This is what George Bergoglio told us. Oscar Crespo, he wanted it. And he's going to get it. Marriage is no longer being held sacred. And we could speak volumes on that. We won't start into that here. What we will say is that it is akin to excommunication because it is. A person who is in a bad marriage, in other words, one that is invalid before the church, is in a state of sin, which is why they're prohibited from receiving the sacraments. True. Other public sinners may also be forbidden to receive the sacraments, such as someone who ran a whorehouse, for instance. Okay, they're not excommunicated normally, but they would be barred from receiving the sacraments because you cannot run a whorehouse and be in the state of grace. They are contrary to each other. And so, let us pray that people will realize the natural law forbids divorce and remarriage. The natural law. And the church has a duty to uphold the natural law. So let us pray, my dear brethren. God bless you.